Hello, and thanks for joining us to watch the following presentation on the Fairfax County Payment Standards Initiative. We hope the following information provides a quick update on the initiative and how the Department of Housing and Community Development is moving forward with this important work, particularly as we adjust efforts due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Members of Thrive have provided valuable feedback and input on this issue. So first off, we wanted to thank you for your time and input. We're now at a point where we must finalize our approach to the payment standards and submit our proposal to HUD this fall. We hope this presentation will provide a synopsis of our planned efforts over the course of the next few months. So today we'd like to take a moment to review the following: a reminder of what the payment standard activity is and its intended outcomes, changes that have occurred since this winter, the last time Thrive met in person, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the methodology that we use to develop the payment standards that will be applied in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, and next steps with the Fairfax County FY 2021 MTW Plan. So just to remind everyone of what's included in the payment standards activity. In 2016, HUD published the Small Area Fair Market Rents, which established fair market rents at the zip code level rather than at the regional or metropolitan level. This was done to better reflect the complexity of the rental market and to help promote residential mobility and deconcentrate poverty. Fairfax County analyzed this new approach and quickly realized that with over 60 zip codes in the county, the small area FMRs would be extremely difficult to administer and would have a negative financial impact on the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Based on the analysis, the Fairfax County Redevelopment and Housing Authority, or the RHA, requested approval to decouple from the HUD Small Area FMR. This request was granted, and Fairfax County began the process of implementing our own local payment standards. The initiative has been implemented in two phases. Phase 1 was to decouple from the HUD fair market rents and establish a local payment standard that applies to the whole county. This was implemented in March of last year. Phase 2 is to develop a new local payment standard that better reflects the complexity of the rental market and the differences in rent within Fairfax County. Just as a reminder, the intent of establishing our own local payment standard is to provide more options and more choices for households participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Right now, HCV households are provided with a flat amount of assistance every month to help offset the cost of renting and utilities within Fairfax County. This payment standard does not differ depending on where the household lives. This can make it more difficult for households to rent in more expensive markets because their dollars do not go as far. Under the new approach, payment standards will be tied more closely to market rents and will vary depending on where in the county a household lives. This will hopefully increase housing options for households by allowing their assistance to go farther. Current practices that allow for exceptions to payment standards for individuals with a disability will remain under the new approach. Importantly, the new payment standards approach is a concrete step forward in implementing the One Fairfax policy adopted by both the RHA and Fairfax County. We want to now turn our attention to what has happened since we last discussed the Payment Standards Initiative, particularly changes that have occurred as a result of the COVID pandemic. In March, the CARES Act was enacted, which provided stimulus funding to help address the health and economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. As part of this legislation, HUD issued a notice outlining waivers that local housing authorities could adopt. These waivers allowed for increased flexibility on a number of topics, including administrative issues such as reporting requirements to HUD, simplifying operations, and reducing requirements that involve face-to-face meetings. The RHA adopted many of these waivers that apply to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. This includes an extension on submitting the FY 2021 Moving to Work Plan. The annual MTW plans are normally due to HUD in April, but this has now been extended through the end of September due to COVID. In preparation of submitting the MTW 2021 plan to HUD, staff have been reviewing the document, particularly through the lens of how COVID has affected our communities. Even in normal times with a strong economy, there is an inherent unpredictability when implementing payment standards. Therefore, we feel that implementation of this activity during the middle of a national recession and a global health crisis would not be prudent. However, HUD is expecting a methodology for our local payment standards. Therefore, we're planning on requesting approval for only the methodology, but we'll come back to the implementation phase at a later date. So we wanted to take a few minutes to explain the methodology that will be used to identify the payment standards in the future. This was previously discussed at the last Thrive meeting, but we wanted to review the approach since this will now be included in the FY 2021 MTW Plan. As was previously discussed, CoStar data will be used to develop the payment standards. CoStar is a subscription-based research company that captures rental data from multifamily properties throughout the county. It's one of the leading sources of rental information in the country. This is the same source of information that the Virginia Tech Center for Housing Research used to identify market affordable units in the county. CoStar is updated frequently, which provides a current picture of the cost of renting in Fairfax County. There are other sources of rental data, such as the U.S. Census Bureau. However, that information is often old due to the time it takes to collect and analyze the data. The methodology will be as follows. The payment standards will be based on CoStar data for 2-bedroom units, as these are the units that are most frequently captured in the CoStar database and the most common type of unit size in Fairfax County. Data will then be aggregated by zip code and then assigned to a zone based on the overall average. HCD will then apply a widely accepted HUD FMR methodology to adjust for outliers and other bedroom sizes. This methodology will result in payment standards that will vary between the 3 zones. These differences will hopefully encourage residential mobility and again reflect the true cost of renting throughout the county. Zip codes that are included in each zone will not necessarily be located next to one another. The methodology identifies payment standards based on market rents, not on geography. As was discussed at the previous Thrive meeting, this is a strong approach as it better reflects the dynamic rental market in Fairfax and the recognition that there is tremendous variation in rents from zip code to zip code. Lastly, using the HUD bedroom multiplier will smooth the data, help to fill in any missing information, and allow the methodology to be standardized and replicated going forward. So, what are the next steps? As county staff continue to monitor the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the rental market, a review will be conducted to understand if implementation of the Payment Standards Initiative is feasible and would have a positive impact on residents. The review will take into consideration the stability of the housing market and whether new payment standards will truly help to foster economic mobility. Importantly, staff will be analyzing the payment standards activity from an equity perspective. This approach will allow us to fully implement the activity when it's best for residents and finances. The timeline for the MTW plan is as follows. In mid-July, we will start the public comment period. On July 30th, there will be a public hearing. At the September 24th meeting, we will request approval of the MTW plan at the RHA meeting. And then on September 30th, we will submit the plan to HUD. So what are next steps for the Thrive Committee regarding the payment standards? As was previously described, staff will conduct an analysis to determine if it's feasible to implement the payment standards. At this time, when the analysis is complete, we'll be sure to inform the Thrive members on the assessment and findings. Both before and after implementation, we'll be reviewing how the new payment standards are impacting residents from an equity perspective. After the payment standards are implemented, whatever this occurs, staff will be evaluating the impact on residents, particularly in terms of residential mobility and whether the new payment standards are helping to encourage households to move to different areas. This information will also be conveyed to Thrive members. And if adjustments need to be made to the payment standards, we will consult with Thrive members on options and best approaches. So, what's the ask of Thrive members? Please let us know if you have any questions regarding the payment standards methodology or the MTW plan. Any questions should be emailed to rha@fairfaxcounty.gov. Staff will then compile all questions from Thrive members and email out one response to these questions. This will allow everyone to receive the same information. Because of the tight timeline and the need to advertise the MTW plan in July, Please send questions by July 9th. Lastly, thank you so much for your continued support and assistance on this initiative and others. We hope you and your loved ones are staying safe, and we look forward to when we can meet again in person. Thank you.